1. The young monk and the candle. The young monk asked the old monk, "Master, people often talk about the land of bliss, but I can't see it. How can I believe in it?" The old monk took the young monk into a dark room and said, "There is a hammer in the corner." The young monk strained his eyes, but he couldn't see anything, not even his own hand. Finally, he told the master that he couldn't see a thing. The old monk then lit a candle, illuminating the room. Indeed, there was a hammer in the corner. The old monk said, "Just because you can't see something doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right?" At that moment, the young monk was amazed, and his long-held doubts were finally answered. 2. The white chalk dot. A teacher made a white dot on a blackboard with a piece of chalk and asked the students, "What do you see?" All 50 students responded in unison, "A white dot." The teacher said, "That's not right." The students were puzzled. How can that be wrong? It's clearly a white dot. One bold student approached the blackboard to inspect the dot closely. He looked from all angles and still saw only a white dot. He confidently said, "Teacher, it is definitely a white dot." The teacher asked, "You all have 50 pairs of eyes, and you can only see a white dot?" Another student asked, "Teacher, do you want us to use our imagination?" The teacher replied, "No, I'm asking what you see in reality." "In reality, it is a white dot," all 50 students answered together. The teacher then asked, "Can't you see the blackboard behind the dot and the wall behind the blackboard?" Only then did the students realize their mistake. They had focused solely on the white dot and forgotten the blackboard and the wall behind it. This is a common error we make in life. We fall into this trap due to habitual thinking. Over time, our vision becomes limited. Fixed thinking makes us see the shining stars, but forget the vast sky and universe behind them. 3. A brother's promise. I got a beautiful new bike for my birthday. One day, while I was riding it in the park, a little boy kept looking at it with excitement and admiration. "Is that your bike?" the boy asked. "My brother gave it to me for my birthday," I replied proudly. "I wish I could," he started to say, and I knew what he was wishing for. He probably wished he had a brother like mine, but what he said next surprised me. "I wish I could be a brother like that," he said earnestly, his face filled with determination. Then he walked over to a bench where his younger brother, who had a disability, was sitting and said, "For one of your birthdays, I'm going to get you a wheelchair." Looking back on your life during tough times, you'll see that the moments you truly lived are the ones when you did something wholeheartedly out of love. 4. A generous heart makes a wide path. There's a saying, "A generous heart makes a wide path." If you're forgiving and can let go of things that seem unforgivable, you'll avoid a lot of stress. A truly cultivated person uses compassion and tolerance to help others, which also helps themselves. No one's life is always smooth, so when we can't change our circumstances, we should try to adjust our mindset. If you're always calculating, you'll find complaints everywhere, but if you let go, you'll feel peaceful like springtime. If you're simple, the world can't seem complicated. If you're like the sun, others won't easily get hurt. 5. The crane, the crab, and the fish. Near a lake, there lived a very cunning crane. Every day, it hunted in the lake, quickly grabbing any fish that came near the surface or swam too close to the shore. The lake was full of fish, crabs, shrimp, and frogs, so the crane was never hungry. However, the crane was greedy and wanted to eat until there were no more crabs or fish left in the lake. One day, while searching for food far away, the crane spotted another large lake. After catching a few big fish there, it returned to its old lake and devised a sneaky plan to trick the fish. "Dear fish," the crane called out, Today I ventured far and saw a large, beautiful lake on the other side of this forest. A fish popped up and asked, "What does that lake have to do with us?" "Just let me explain," continued the crane. "On my way back, I overheard some people saying they plan to drain this lake soon to catch all the fish. I'm worried about you. If you all die, who will I live with?" A naive young fish relayed the crane's words to its family and friends. Soon, all the fish gathered by the shore seeking the crane's help to escape the danger. After much discussion, the fish agreed to let the crane carry a few of them at a time to the new lake, then return for the others. Sadly, the fish fell for the crane's evil scheme. The crane would grab a few fish, fly to a tall tree where it usually perched overnight, and eat them one by one, then drop their bones to the ground. It continued this until it had deceived and eaten many of the fish. Now it was the crab's turn. Knowing the crane's wicked nature, the crab was cautious. When the crane grabbed it, the crab wrapped its claws tightly around the crane's neck. As the crane flew towards the tall tree, the crab looked down and couldn't see the large, beautiful lake anywhere. "Hey, Mr. Crane, are we almost there?" the crab asked. "Almost. Just be patient," the crane replied. Growing suspicious, the crab kept asking, "Are we there yet? Why is this lake so far?" "Just a bit further," the crane said, finally landing on a familiar branch. Seeing a pile of white bones at the base of the tree, the crab realized that the fish from the lake had been eaten. It tightened its grip around the crane's neck. Despite the crane's attempts to shake it off, the crab held on. The crab forced the crane to fly back to the old lake. Suffering from the tight grip, the crane had no choice but to carry the crab back. Before the crane could open its beak to drop the crab into the water, the crab squeezed its neck tightly, severing it. With a final cry, the crane fell into the lake. Justice was served for the deceitful and greedy crane. 6. The Wolf and the Goat. A goat lagged behind its herd and was pursued closely by a wolf. The goat turned and said to the wolf, "Sir, I know I am to be your meal, but to make it tastier for you, why don't you play the flute while I dance for you?" The wolf began to play the flute, and the goat danced wildly. The noise alerted the farm dogs, who came running and chased the wolf away. As the wolf ran, he looked back at the goat and said, "I lost to you because I, a butcher, tried to be a musician and missed my chance." 7. Flowers bloom on the Buddha's altar. Before the sun rose, the spring grass outside the temple was covered with dew. There was a young man kneeling in repentance. "Master, please forgive me." He was a flamboyant wanderer. 20 years ago, he was a novice monk in the temple, dearly loved by the abbot. The abbot had taught him everything he knew, hoping he would become an excellent Buddhist disciple. But one night, he remembered the secular world and secretly left the mountain. The dazzling city entranced him, and from then on, he lived a reckless life. Night after night was like spring, yet not quite spring. 20 years later, one night, he suddenly had a realization. The moonlight outside his window seemed to cleanse his soul. Full of remorse, he put on his robe, mounted his horse, and quickly returned to the temple. "Master, forgive me and accept me as your disciple once more." The abbot disliked his reckless nature and shook his head. "No, you have committed a grave sin. You must be confined to the hell of Avicii, to be forgiven by the Buddha, unless—" The abbot pointed at the Buddha's altar. "Even the Buddha's altar must bloom." Disheartened, the wanderer left. The next morning, when the abbot entered the temple hall, he was utterly astonished. Overnight, the altar was covered with large pink and white flowers, each emitting a sweet fragrance. The temple hall was still, without a hint of wind, yet the flowers seemed to sway as if beckoning. The abbot suddenly realized his mistake and hurried down the mountain to find the wanderer, but it was already too late.
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
8. The Cuckoo and Two Kings. When the falcon was king, he loved listening to the birds play flutes. During the music festival, the falcon had 1,000 birds play flutes all at once. Among these 1,000 birds was the cuckoo, who didn't know how to play the flute but joined in to get the food the king provided. When the falcon stopped being king, the phoenix took over. The new king also loved listening to the flute, but he only wanted to hear each flute played individually. The cuckoo knew he would be exposed and asked to leave the band. The crane, who was the band leader, asked, "Why do you want to leave when you're doing so well?" The cuckoo replied, "When working together, you can rely on others, but when working alone, who can you rely on?" 9. The Gift. One day, while Buddha was teaching his disciples under a large tree, a Brahmin monk approached, insulting him and intending to attack him. Buddha, with the wisdom of an enlightened one, responded to the anger with complete silence. Surprised by Buddha's reaction, the Brahmin asked why he remained silent while being verbally attacked. Calmly, Buddha replied, "If I offer you a gift and you refuse to accept it, who does the gift belong to?" The man answered, "It belongs to you." Buddha nodded and explained, "Similarly, if you insult me and I do not accept it, then it remains with you." This story teaches us that although some people may choose to waste their time and energy insulting us, we have the choice whether to accept those insults or not. It's like deciding whether to accept a gift or to return it to the giver. If you accept it, you keep the gift. If not, the one who insults you is just a pitiful person left alone with their negativity. 10. The Rabbit and the Cow. A rabbit was being chased by a dog and had nowhere to hide. Suddenly, the rabbit saw an old cow grazing by the roadside. The rabbit ran toward the cow, crying for help, while the dog was closing in. The cow stood in the middle of the road, snorting loudly and aggressively, scaring the dog away. Then the cow turned to the rabbit and asked, "Why did you come to me for help? How did you know I would protect you?" The rabbit replied, "When death is right behind you, even a stranger in front seems like a friend, especially since you and I already know each other." 11. The Greedy Barracuda. There was a giant barracuda that ruled the ocean, and even the fiercest group of turtles had to obey its commands. One day, it ordered the turtles to catch fish for it. The turtles selected the fattest fish and brought back a whole boatload for the barracuda to eat. After devouring the fish, it still wasn't satisfied and created a huge wave to push more fish toward the shore. It commanded the turtles, "Hurry, catch them for me! Catch, catch!" When the barracuda saw the turtles moving too slowly, it decided to catch the fish itself. It opened its mouth wide and lunged forward to swallow the entire school of fish. But because of the strong waves, it was thrown against a rocky shore and could not get back into the water. Stuck halfway on the rocks and halfway in the sea, the school of fish it had chased turned around and gradually started to nibble on it. 12. Losing the hammer. There was a woodcutter who lost his hammer. He suspected the boy next door had stolen it. So every move the boy made, the woodcutter thought it was the behavior of a thief. He looked at the boy's facial expressions and saw a thief. He heard the boy talk and thought it sounded like a thief. Every action of the boy seemed like those of someone who stole his hammer. Then, one day, the woodcutter went up the mountain and found his hammer, which he had left on a mound of dirt. From that moment, he no longer saw the boy's actions as those of a thief. 13. The Test. There was a parrot who, after learning a few human words, felt very proud and boastful. He declared, I can speak human language. From now on, you will never hear me speak a word of bird language again." "Oh, wow!" exclaimed the sparrows. "How smart he is! He only speaks human language. He despises bird language." "Does he really know human language?" asked an old crow. "So what? That's great. But that doesn't mean he's smarter than everyone else. I also know human language, but I've never considered myself a scholar." "Then talk to him in human language," the sparrows urged. "We bet he won't talk to you in bird language. Just watch and see." "All right, let me try," said the old crow, then hopped to the branch where the parrot was sitting proudly. "Hello, parrot," the crow greeted and introduced himself in clear human language. "I am Crow." "Parrot is a fool! Parrot is a fool!" the parrot replied in a dignified human tone. "Parrot is a fool!" "Did you hear that?" the sparrows exclaimed admiringly. "He made you believe, right? He speaks only in human language. Do you believe now?" "Yes, I believe, and I admit he is very correct." 14. Live your dream. Dare to dream and nurture those dreams because they are the driving force that helps you achieve your goals. My friend, Monty Roberts, owns a horse ranch in San Isidro. His ranch often hosts fundraisers to help local youth with their projects. Once, he shared this story. A long time ago, a poor boy followed his father from stable to stable, racetrack to racetrack, and farm to farm, helping him train horses. One day, his teacher asked the students to write about their dreams. While others wrote about becoming engineers, doctors, football players, actors, etc., the boy wrote about his dream of owning a horse ranch someday. He even drew a detailed plan of the ranch, showing the locations of all the buildings, stables, and tracks. The boy received an F on his paper with a note from the teacher. "See me after class." The teacher told him, "This is an unrealistic dream for a kid like you. You don't have the resources to do this. Do you know how much money it takes to own a horse ranch? You need to buy horses, land for the ranch. You should set a more practical goal. If you rewrite the paper with a realistic goal, I'll reconsider your grade." The boy thought about it for a week and decided to ask his dad what to do. His dad said, "You have to make your own decision. I think it's important for you." Finally, after much thought, the boy turned in the same paper without any changes and told his teacher, "Sir, I'll keep my dream and accept the bad grade." Monty Roberts concluded, "I'm sharing this story because you are sitting in my 200-acre horse ranch. I still have that paper, framed above the fireplace." After a pause, he added, "Interestingly, 2 years ago, my old teacher brought his students here for a week-long camp. Before leaving, he told me, 'Monty, you taught me a lesson about perseverance and living your dream.'" 15. Valuing things over people. Duke Jing of Qi enjoyed using hawks to hunt rabbits. Once, Zhu Chu accidentally let the Duke's hawk escape, and the Duke ordered that Zhu Chu be executed. Yanzi, hearing of this, came to see the Duke. "Zhu Chu has committed 3 serious offenses, and it would be easy to justify his execution. May I list his faults before you proceed?" Duke Jing agreed. Yanzi pointed at Zhu Chu and said, "First, you were tasked with caring for the Duke's bird, yet you let it escape. That's the first crime. Second, your mistake forces the Duke to consider taking a life over a bird, which is the second crime. Third, if you are executed, everyone will criticize the Duke for valuing birds over his loyal subjects, which would be the third crime." Hearing this, Duke Jing quickly told Yanzi, "Say no more, I understand your point." 16. Thank you, pain. Han Shan asked Shide, "In this world there are people who insult me, bully me, humiliate me, laugh at me, look down on me, take advantage of me, and deceive me. How should I deal with such people?" Shide replied, "Be patient with them, tolerate them, avoid them, go along with them, endure them, respect them, and ignore them. After a few years, look back and see how they are doing. Lesson to reflect on. Those who cause us trouble actually give us the chance to reflect on ourselves and make positive changes in our character. The people who make things difficult for us are like mirrors. They help us realize that we have created a distorted and exaggerated version of ourselves. Through them, we find our true selves and live genuinely with what we have. Be grateful for the people who cause trouble in your life. Learn from them, and they will show you exactly the kind of person you do not want to become. Additional thoughts. Don't be upset by the pain in life. Instead, thank it. 17. Don't show off your smarts. A lot of people have a bad habit of interrupting others before they finish speaking. They think they're smarter and more knowledgeable. Imagine a situation where a group of friends is gathered, listening intently to an exciting and intriguing story. Everyone is engrossed, hanging on every word. Then, someone new joins the group and, without knowing the context, cuts in and reveals the ending of the story. This kills the excitement for everyone listening and takes the joy away from the storyteller. Nobody appreciates the person who interrupted. A book called "Tie Can Damn" says, "You can say 9 out of 10 correct things and it won't be a big deal, but say one wrong thing and you'll be judged for it." It's like a soccer goalie who saves 9 out of 10 shots but is blamed for letting in just one goal. Even if you understand something well, you don't always need to say it. Some thoughts are better kept to yourself if they're not appropriate to share. Interrupting not only makes others dislike you, but can also lead to unnecessary misunderstandings. Consider a young man who really likes a girl but is too shy to tell her. One day, she comes up to him and says, "I like you." Overjoyed, he starts to say, "You're a great girl." But before he can finish, she interrupts, "I know, you don't need to say it." Embarrassed, he stammers, I, and she cuts him off again. "No need to say more, goodbye." The boy wanted to say, "I like you too," but was too flustered to get the words out. Because she couldn't be patient and listen, she missed out on hearing the words she longed for. Many awkward situations and unnecessary misunderstandings arise from not having the patience to let others finish speaking. People who don't interrupt show humility and don't feel the need to prove they are smarter. They understand basic social etiquette and demonstrate high personal cultivation. 18. Lessons in teamwork and support from geese. When you see a flock of geese flying in a V formation, you might wonder why they do that. Science has found that when each goose flaps its wings, it creates an uplift for the goose flying directly behind it. By flying in a V formation, the whole flock adds at least 71% more flying range than if each bird flew alone. Those who share a common direction and sense of community can get where they are going quicker and easier because they are traveling on the thrust of one another. When a goose falls out of formation, it suddenly feels the drag and resistance of trying to fly alone, and quickly gets back into formation to take advantage of the lifting power of the bird in front. If people had the sense of a goose, we would stay in formation with those who are headed the same way we are. When the lead goose gets tired, it rotates back into the formation and another goose flies at the point position. Like geese, people need to take turns doing the hard tasks and sharing leadership. The geese in the back honk to encourage those up front to keep up their speed. What message do we send when we honk from behind? Most importantly, when a goose gets sick or is wounded by gunshots and falls out, 2 geese fall out of formation and follow it down to help and protect it. They stay with the downed goose until it is able to fly or until it dies. Then they launch out on their own or with another formation to catch up with their group. If we had the sense of geese, we would stand by each other like that in tough times. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time. 19. The simple secret of happiness. We often think that our lives will be better once we finish school, have a family, and a stable job. But once we achieve those things, we're still worried and stressed about other problems. We usually feel unsatisfied when life doesn't go as planned. Few people realize that the happiest moments are the ones we are living right now. Life is full of challenges and hardships. The best way to deal with life is to accept reality and believe in yourself. No matter the situation, we need to find and feel our own happiness. Don't wait for a miracle or for someone else to bring you happiness. Don't wait until you're free, graduated, rich, successful, have a family, or retire to think you'll be happy. Don't wait for spring, summer, fall, or winter to feel happy. Don't wait for the sunrise or sunset to think it's happiness. Don't wait for Saturdays, weekends, holidays, birthdays, or special days to feel happy. Why not feel happy now? Happiness is a journey, not a destination. Cherish every precious moment of that journey. Spend time caring for others, and remember, time waits for no one, but it's never too late. Time is your best friend. Embrace life with all its simple and pure moments, as if you've never experienced pain or despair. Discover yourself, the true meaning of love, and most importantly, the simple secret of happiness. 20. Never too late to learn. Emperor Tan Bin Kong said to the minister Su Kuang, "I am now 70 years old and I always feel that my knowledge is insufficient. Although I love reading and learning from the wise, I am too old, and it may be too late to learn more." "Too late?" Su Kuang said. "If it's late, why not light a candle?" "I'm being serious, and yet you jest." Su Kuang replied, "As your servant, I would not dare to jest with the emperor. What I mean is that if someone studies hard in their youth, their future will shine like the morning sun. If they study in middle age, it will be like the midday sun. And in old age, though it's only like the flame of a candle, that flame still shines brighter than the darkness." 21. Is the earth moving because of you? Angela, an 11-year-old girl, suffers from severe nerve damage. She couldn't walk, and the doctors didn't hold out much hope for her recovery. But Angela didn't give up. Even while lying in bed, she promised everyone that one day she would walk again. Angela was transferred to a special rehabilitation center in San Francisco. The therapists there were very impressed by her strong spirit. They taught her to use her imagination to picture herself walking. If it didn't help her physically, at least it would give her hope and positive thoughts while she was bedridden. Angela gave her best in every physical therapy session, but she still lay in bed, imagining herself walking, and walking. One day, while she was trying hard to imagine herself walking on her own feet, something miraculous seemed to happen. The bed started to move. It began to move around the room. She screamed, "Look at what I'm doing! I can move! I can move!" Of course, at that moment, everyone in the hospital screamed and ran for cover. There were shouts, things falling, and glass breaking. It was an earthquake. But don't tell Angela that. She believes she made the miracle happen. A few years later, Angela went back to school, on her own feet, no crutches, no wheelchair. Could those who experienced the earthquake in the San Francisco and Oakland area also overcome a minor illness? 22. The miraculous seeds. During a hot summer, a large area of the grass in the temple courtyard dried up and looked unsightly. The young monk noticed this and suggested to his master, "Master, perhaps we should scatter some seeds." The master replied, "No rush, let nature take its course." When they had seeds, the master told the young monk, "Go ahead and plant them." Unexpectedly, a gust of wind blew away many of the freshly scattered seeds. The young monk hurriedly told his master, "Master, many seeds have been blown away by the wind." The master responded, "It's okay. The seeds that were blown away were inferior and wouldn't have sprouted anyway, let it be." Just after they finished scattering the seeds, some birds came and began pecking at the soil. The young monk quickly tried to scare the birds away, then ran to inform his master. "Master, the seeds have been eaten by the birds." The master calmly replied, "Don't worry. There are plenty of seeds left. They can't eat them all. Let what happens happen." In the middle of the night, a heavy storm came. The young monk, distressed, ran to his master's room. "This time it's really over. All the seeds have been washed away by the rain." The master replied, "If they've been washed away, so be it. They will sprout wherever they have ended up. Let fate decide." After a few days, many new sprouts appeared on the barren land, even in places where no seeds were initially scattered. The young monk, overjoyed, exclaimed, "Master, look, all the seeds have sprouted." The master remained calm and said, "As they should, let joy be." There are also people who claim to have a good relationship with you. They come to you for help, and even their family members turn to you when in need. Out of a sense of obligation, you reluctantly agree, only to find that they take advantage of your kindness. This person boasts everywhere that they have a close relationship with you, making many things easier without cost, but they don't realize how much strain each favor puts on you. Nam was such a person. At that time, I was in charge of sales and he bought a car with my help. I couldn't refuse. But soon after, he brought his relatives to buy cars, followed by his colleagues and even their friends. No matter who came, they all haggled aggressively, exploiting our supposed friendship. I had to keep a smile on my face, but it was tough internally. Ironically, Nam didn't see how troublesome this was for me. He even boasted about helping my business and often expected me to treat him to meals as thanks. I was truly speechless. Eventually, Nam brought a friend to buy a car, and because I couldn't meet his excessive demands, our relationship suffered. We became estranged, and what had been a good friendship was gradually destroyed by my formality, and years of camaraderie grew distant. 23. The fingers. One day, the fingers were arguing about which one was the most important. First, the middle finger said, "I'm in the center of the hand. Without me, the hand wouldn't be complete." The other fingers argued back. "Even though you're in the center and stand taller than the rest of us, you don't actually help the hand hold anything." The ring finger proudly claimed that it was the most important because it wears the symbol of the owner's maturity, the wedding ring. But the other fingers laughed and pointed out, "You should be quiet. The wedding ring spends more time in the pocket, so young women think the owner is single. Besides, what else do you do?" "I'm the most important," said the index finger. "Who shows the way? Who points out the flaws in the organization? It's me. When the owner says, 'The reason for our slow progress is right here,' everyone is afraid because no one wants to be blamed." "You're mistaken, my dear friend," said the thumb. "You're not the only one who points. I also point, but I do it more skillfully and subtly. I don't point directly at people but gesture to the right or behind and still identify the culprit. Moreover, when the owner wants to avoid responsibility, I help him direct the guest elsewhere." All this time, the pinky finger stayed silent. Being the smallest finger, it didn't have much to brag about. But then, "Why isn't the pinky saying anything?" the other fingers asked. "I do point," said the pinky. "Since I'm so small, when the owner needs to criticize himself, he uses me to point at his chest where no one can see. Also, I'm useful for making secret deals. When an agreement is reached, both parties hook me together. I get quite a bit done." 24. Father. Over time, the way a son sees his father changes. At 7 years old, my dad knows everything. He's amazing. At 14 years old, Sometimes it seems like he might be wrong. At 20 years old, Dad is a bit outdated. His ideas aren't really with the times. At 25 years old, the old man doesn't know anything, always asking questions, so behind the times. At 35 years old, if only Dad had been as talented as I am now, he would surely be rich today. At 45 years old, I wonder if I should discuss this with the old man. Maybe he'll have some good advice. At 55 years old, it's a shame Dad is gone. Honestly, his insights were truly profound. At 60 years old, my father was a great scholar, knew everything there was to know. It's just a pity I only realized this too late. 25. A simple act of kindness. One day, while walking home from school, Mark saw a boy ahead of him trip and spill all the books he was carrying, along with 2 sweaters, a baseball bat, a pair of gloves, and a small tape recorder. Mark knelt down to help him pick up the scattered items. As they walked, Mark learned that the boy's name was Bill, that he liked video games, baseball, and history, and that he was struggling with some classes and had recently broken up with his girlfriend. After walking Bill home, Mark continued on his way. Later, Mark and Bill met up at school, had lunch together a few times, and eventually both graduated from high school. Over the years, they often saw each other. Then came their final year of high school. 3 weeks before graduation, Bill asked Mark if they could talk. Bill reminded Mark of the day they first met. "Do you ever wonder why I was carrying so much stuff that day?" Bill asked. "You see, I had cleaned out my locker because I didn't want to leave a mess for anyone else. I had taken some of my mom's sleeping pills and was going home to kill myself. But after spending time talking and laughing with you, I realized that if I died, I would miss those moments and potentially great times ahead. So, you see, Mark, when you helped me pick up my books that day, you did a lot more. You saved my life. Anyone can be great. You just need a heart full of grace and a soul full of love." 26. Homegrown Buddha. Yangpu from Sichuan province decided to search for the Bodhisattva. On his journey, he met a monk. The monk asked, "Where are you going?" "I'm searching for the Bodhisattva." "The Bodhisattva is far away. Wouldn't it be better to look for the Buddha instead?" "Where can I find the Buddha?" "When you go home and see someone greeting you wearing a blanket and with one slipper on, that person is the Buddha." Following this advice, Yangpu returned home late at night. Overjoyed to hear her son's voice, his mother quickly threw on a blanket and slipped on one shoe. She rushed to open the door. When Yangpu saw his mother like this, he was struck speechless. Commentary. People seek truth, but what's essential is to realize it within one's heart, for without this realization, it's hard to encounter. 27. Nature. Seeing a tiger sleeping deeply with a snake beside him, Rabbit thought, "Oh no, what if it bites the tiger? I must wake him up." Even though he was trembling with fear, Rabbit grabbed the tiger's tail and pulled hard. "Who dares to wake me up?" roared the tiger. "Please forgive me, it's me," said Rabbit, softly. "Watch out, there's a snake." The tiger looked back, saw the snake, and quickly jumped to another spot. "Give me your paw," said the tiger to Rabbit. "You are brave and noble. From now on, we are friends and I will protect you. Now you don't have to be afraid of anyone." Rabbit was very happy. Suddenly a fox popped its head out of the bushes. Rabbit quickly ran away as fast as the wind. The tiger was very surprised. He shook his head, confused. By evening he found Rabbit. "Why did you run away?" "I saw the fox." "But I was right beside you. I promised to protect you." "Yes, you did." "Don't you trust me?" "Yes, I do." "Do you think that fox is stronger than me?" "No, you are stronger." "Then why did you run?" "Well, it's a bad habit of us rabbits," admitted Rabbit sheepishly. 28. Unbelievable story. A monk shared this tale. Once upon a time, a group of people went to search for gems in the mountains. After much hardship, they finally found a precious jewel among the solid rocks. Overjoyed, they prepared to head home. However, instead of taking the gem straight to town, they scattered to look for tools like hammers, crowbars, and supports, and ultimately died at the mountain's base with the gem before they could gather all the necessary equipment. A student commented, "Master, that's hard to believe." "Oh, that old story hardly registers, but even today people still search for gems. They haven't found any gems, but they lose all their time gossiping, bickering, eating, entertaining themselves, and more." The student understood and remained silent.
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
29. Seeing the cashew tree. Two meditators were talking. The first one pointed to a cashew tree in front and asked the second, "Do you see anything?" "I see the cashew tree." "Really?" "Yes." "Look again." "It's still the cashew tree." "Well, if you keep looking, you might see Saigon, Cho Lan, Phat Hu Duyen, Bo de Duyen, and more. 30. Pain will pass, but beauty will stay. Though Henri Matisse was nearly 28 years younger than Auguste Renoir, the two great painters were close friends. When Renoir became ill and confined himself to his home for over 10 years, Matisse visited him every day. Renoir, nearly paralyzed by severe arthritis, continued to paint despite the pain. One day, while watching his friend struggle in the studio, Matisse cried out, "Auguste, why do you keep painting when you're in such pain?" Renoir looked at him and replied, "The pain will pass, but the beauty will stay." Until nearly the day he died, Renoir kept moving his brush across the canvas. One of his most famous works, The Bathers, was completed 2 years before his death, 14 years after he first became afflicted by the disease. Character weakness is the greatest flaw that cannot be changed. 31. The archery talent. A young man named Thuong Duong wanted to learn archery. He heard that the world's greatest archer, named Du Long Tu Chu, was living deep in the mountains. Everyone knew of Du Long Tu Chu's reputation, though he was known to be quite eccentric. Many fascinating tales were told about him, but when Thuong Duong asked if anyone had seen Du Long Tu Chu or knew how to find him, everyone shook their heads, admitting these were just stories without knowing the truth. Determined, Thuong Duong prepared his gear and ventured into the deep mountains. After more than a year, he still hadn't found Du Long Tu Chu. Wandering through the forest, looking more like a wild man with unkempt hair and torn clothes, he did not lose hope and continued his search. "Stop! Don't move!" a voice suddenly echoed. Startled, as he hadn't heard a human voice in over a year, Thuong Duong saw an old, dirty man in front of him, aiming a large bow with an arrow pointed straight at him. "It's a robber!" Thuong Duong thought. Suddenly, he heard a whoosh sound as an arrow flew past his ear. Just then, a leopard fell from above, growling. Thuong Duong realized then that the old man wasn't a robber but someone who had just saved his life. He quickly thanked him. "Thank you for saving my life." "Save you? When did I save you?" the old man dismissed with a wave of his bow. "I shot this leopard to use its hide for a cushion, not to save you." Thuong Duong looked at the bow in the old man's hand and then at the leopard, dead on the ground with an arrow between its eyes, only its tail feathers showing. It was such a precise shot that Thuong Duong thought, "This must be Du Long Tu Chu." "You must be Du Long Tu Chu, the world's greatest archer. I have been searching for you for over a year. Please accept me as your disciple." The old man replied, "I'm not the greatest anything, and I don't like teaching. If you want to learn archery, I'll tell you a story. Once, King So went hunting at Van Mong Lake. He stood at a crossroads ordering his soldiers to drive the animals out of the forest for him to shoot. So, the soldiers banged drums and rang bells, scaring the animals out. A deer ran to King So's left and a boar appeared on his right. As King So aimed his bow, a swan flew overhead. He shifted his aim from one side to the other, unsure which to shoot. Eventually, all the animals escaped, and King So shot none. An advisor, Duong Thuk, told him, "When I aim, even if it's a leaf 100 steps away, I can hit it 100 times out of 100. But if you give me 10 leaves to shoot at once, I won't hit a single one." After hearing this, Thuong Duong bowed to the old man and said, "I understand." Bidding farewell, Thuong Duong built a leaf hut to live in. He spent his days practicing archery, focusing solely on his target, never blinking, no matter what was in front of him. 3 years later, Thuong Duong had become a master archer, hitting his target with every shot. 32. Dare to believe. A young boy walked across the baseball field wearing his baseball cap neatly on his head, holding a bat and a ball. He proudly said to himself, "I am the greatest baseball player in the world." He threw the ball high, swung the bat hard, but missed. Undeterred, he picked up the ball, tossed it up again, and thought, "I will always be the best player." He swung the bat again, but like before, he missed. The boy paused for a moment to carefully check his ball and bat. Once more, he tossed the ball and declared, "I am the greatest player in history." He swung the bat hard and missed again. "Wow," the boy exclaimed. "What an amazing pitcher I am." D. 33. I wanted to butt heads. There was this little goat with tiny horns, always picking fights. He didn't really do much else but bother everyone. "I want to butt heads. Come on, let's headbutt for fun." "Leave me alone," said the rooster, stepping aside with dignity. "Come on, let's play by butting heads." The goat approached a young pig. "Back off," the piglet responded, kicking up dirt with his hind legs. The goat then ran up to an old sheep. "Let's headbutt for fun." "Go away," the sheep pleaded. "Leave me be. I can't be seen headbutting with you." "But I want to," the goat insisted. "Come on, just for fun." The sheep said nothing and quietly walked away. Then the goat spotted a young dog. "Wow, let's butt heads and see." "All right, let's go." The puppy eagerly ran up and bit the goat's leg hard. "Ouch, that hurt," cried the goat. "I just wanted to butt heads. Why'd you do that?" "Well, I wanted to bite," replied the puppy, biting the goat again, even harder this time. 34. Crossing the river. An elderly monk and his young apprentice were on a journey to collect scriptures. Along the way, they encountered a fast-flowing river. On the riverbank, a young and beautiful woman stood anxiously because the nearest bridge had collapsed. She wanted to cross but was afraid to enter the swift water. Without hesitation, the elder monk carried the woman across the river and continued on his way with the apprentice. Witnessing this, the apprentice was troubled. He knew monks were not supposed to touch women, so he felt upset thinking his master had broken the monastic rules but hesitated to ask. After a while, he couldn't hold back any longer and said, "Master, you have broken the rules. How could you carry that woman across the river?" The elder monk laughed upon hearing the apprentice's concern and said, "I put her down on the other side long ago. Why are you still carrying her?" This story teaches us that sometimes we carry the burdens of the past, anger, guilt, and resentment, and even make them heavier than they need to be. By realizing these strong emotions are not our present reality and learning to let go, we can lessen the burden on ourselves and those around us. 35. Misunderstanding the kindness. Once upon a time, there was a lazy wolf who never cleaned or fixed up his house. It was dirty and run down, about to collapse. One day, Mr. Elephant passed by and accidentally nudged the house, causing part of the roof to collapse. "Sorry, my friend," Mr. Elephant said to Wolf. "I'll fix it right away." Mr. Elephant was very capable and wasn't afraid of hard work. He immediately took a hammer and nails and repaired the roof for Wolf, making it even sturdier than before. "Aha!" thought the wolf. "He must be afraid of me. He apologized and even fixed my roof. I should make him build me a new house. He's scared, so he'll have to listen." "Hey, stop right there!" Wolf shouted at Elephant. "What do you think you're doing? You think you can just walk away that easily? You knock down my house, slap a few nails in, and think that's it? If you know what's good for you, you'll build me a new house. You beast! Otherwise, I'll teach you a lesson and you'll never see your family again. Hurry up!" Hearing this, Mr. Elephant said nothing. He quietly picked up Wolf, threw him into a muddy pit, and then completely flattened Wolf's house. "Here's your new house," said Mr. Elephant, and walked away. When Wolf regained consciousness, he was puzzled. "I don't understand. He seemed scared of me at first, apologized politely, but then he did this. I just can't figure it out." "You're very foolish," said old Mr. Crow, who had seen everything. "You don't understand the difference between a coward and a well-mannered person." 36. The Beggar Man. One day, an old beggar stood outside a bustling bakery. His clothes were tattered, his hair was messy, and he had an unpleasant smell. Customers nearby covered their noses and frowned in disgust. Seeing this, a store employee loudly said, "Old beggar, go away, go now." Trembling, the beggar pulled out some dirty paper money and said, "I want to buy some sweets. Which are the smallest ones?" The bakery owner came forward smiling and handed the beggar a small, pretty pastry from the display. Bending down, he said, "Thank you for your purchase. We welcome you back any time." The beggar was amazed and walked away, touched by the respect he received for the first time. Respecting others shows your true character, not because they are superior, but because it reflects your own superiority, the bakery owner explained. The owner's grandson asked, "Grandpa, why did you welcome that dirty beggar?" "Although he is a beggar, he is also a customer. He saved up just to enjoy our sweets, which we work hard to make. If we didn't serve him personally, how could we deserve his patronage?" the owner explained. "But why did you still charge him?" the grandson inquired. "He came here to buy, not to beg. Of course we must respect him. If I hadn't charged him, it would have been an insult," the owner replied. "We must respect every customer, even a beggar, because what we have comes from our customers." The grandson nodded in understanding. This bakery owner was the grandfather of Japanese business tycoon and billionaire Yoshiaki Tsutsumi. Tsutsumi once said, "Back then, every action my grandfather took towards that beggar deeply impressed me." Years later, Tsutsumi shared this story with his employees to teach them the importance of respecting customers. Respecting others is not just about politeness. It comes from understanding, empathy, and deep respect. It's not influenced by social status or personal benefit, representing the purest, most sincere form of gratitude. As the saying goes, give an inch of respect, gain a yard of path. Always treat others well, whether you like them or not, friends or foes, and respect them. This is a form of courage and wisdom. 37. Lessons of resilience and joy from a brave 6-year-old. The story of young Adam. After recovering from her second heart surgery at the Children's Hospital in Western Ontario, my 6-year-old daughter Kelly was moved from the intensive care unit to a general treatment floor with other patients. Part of this floor was not in use, so Kelly shared a room meant for cancer patients. Next door, a 6-year-old boy named Adam was battling leukemia. Adam had to come to the hospital monthly for chemotherapy treatments. Despite the discomfort, Adam would visit Kelly's room daily, pushing along his IV stand. Always smiling and cheerful, Adam could make us laugh for hours with his stories. He found humor and positivity in every situation, no matter how tough it got. On the day Kelly was discharged, I was exhausted and worried about her. The dreary and gloomy weather outside added to my sadness. Standing by the window watching the rain, Adam came to our room as usual. I told him it was a particularly dull day. With his ever-bright smile, Adam turned to me and cheerfully said, "For me, every day is beautiful." Since then, I've never had a dull day again. Even the gloomiest days bring joy and comfort when I remember those wise words from the brave 6-year-old boy named Adam. Personality can truly change how you see the world. 38. The Farmer. Prays for peace. A farmer went to a temple to bow before the Buddha, praying for peace for his family. After a few moments of bowing, the farmer noticed someone next to him also bowing. Strangely, this person looked exactly like the Buddha statue on the high pedestal. The farmer was very puzzled and quietly asked, "Are you Buddha?" The other person replied, "Yes, I am." The farmer was even more confused and asked, "Then why are you bowing too?" The other person answered, "Because I know that praying, relying on, or asking others is not as good as relying on oneself. Only you can truly help yourself. You should not depend on others." 40. Excuse me, ma'am, are you rich? Two kids huddled together in an oversized, tattered coat stood behind the door, shivering, asking me, "Ma'am, would you like to buy some old newspapers?" I was busy and just wanted to quickly decline, but when I looked down at their feet, I couldn't turn them away. Their tiny sandals were soaked from the snow. "Come inside, I'll make each of you a hot cocoa." They quietly followed me inside. Their wet sandals were placed on the fireplace hearth to dry. The cocoa and toast with jam warmed us up from the freezing cold outside. After serving the kids, I went back to the kitchen to continue grappling with my painful budget. The quiet in the living room felt strange. I looked in. The girl held her empty cup and stared at it intently. The boy hesitated. "Excuse me, ma'am, are you rich?" "Rich? No, not at all." I sighed as I looked at my worn tablecloth. The girl carefully placed her cup on the saucer. "Your cups match the plates so well." She sounded envious. Then they left, old newspapers in hand, bracing against the bitter wind. They didn't say thank you. But really, they didn't need to thank me. What they did for me was more than thanks. My plain green ceramic cups and plates were just ordinary, but they matched perfectly. I tasted my potato and stirred the soup. The potatoes, the soup, this house, my husband with his stable job, all perfectly suited for me. I returned the chair to its spot by the fireplace and tidied up the room. The mud from the kids' wet sandals still marked the hearth, but I left it there. I wanted to keep it just in case I ever forget how rich I really am. 41. Medicine. Becoming the illness. A monk tells a story. There was a seriously ill person, and his family brought him some medicine and said, Hi, we have some Western medicine here. Take it to get better." The patient protested. "Are you joking, Mom? That's Western medicine. You need to give me a Western outfit to wear and say a few words in a Western language before it will work." 42. What challenges leave behind? The quickest way out of hardship is through it. A young man, overwhelmed by difficulties, felt hurt and lost faith in life. He sought advice from a wise old man. After listening, the old man didn't say a word. Instead, he silently placed a pot on the stove, filled it with water, and added a carrot, a cube of salt, and an egg. After boiling it, He lifted the lid and pensively looked at the young man. Then he began to speak. Everyone goes through hardships and challenges, but what matters is what happens afterwards. Look at the salt cube. It appears solid but dissolves in water. The carrot, tough at first, softens with heat, and the egg, though fragile, becomes harder after boiling in hot water. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time. 43. Destiny lies in your hands. A long time ago, a general decided to attack the enemy even though they were much stronger. On the way to battle, he stopped at a temple to pray for help. After praying, he took out a coin and said to his soldiers, "Now, I'll toss this coin. If it lands heads, we will win. If it lands tails, we will lose. Our fate is in the hands of destiny." The coin flew up, spun around, and landed on the ground. "It's heads! We will win! Charge and crush the enemy!" The soldiers cheered with excitement. After the battle, the powerful enemy was completely defeated. The lieutenant happily said to the general, "No one can change the hand of destiny." The general just smiled and didn't respond. He opened his hand to show the coin. Both sides of the coin were heads. Moral: heaven is fair to everyone and shows no favoritism. The only help you have is yourself. 44. Courage. A young girl was diagnosed with a dangerous and very rare disease. The only chance to save her life was a blood transfusion from her 5-year-old brother who had the same disease but miraculously survived because his body had developed antibodies to fight it. The doctor explained this to her brother and asked if he was willing to give his blood to save his sister. After hesitating for a moment, he took a deep breath and said, "I'll do it if it helps her get better." While the blood was being transferred, the siblings lay on beds next to each other. The boy smiled as he saw his sister's cheeks begin to regain color. Then his face turned pale and his smile faded. He looked at the doctor and asked with a trembling voice, "Am I going to die now? Please try to save my sister." The innocent boy had misunderstood the doctor's explanation, thinking he had to give all his blood to save his sister. Courage helps us face our fears, not hide from them. 45. The Death of the Tiger. There was a scholar named N.H.A. Thock who didn't want to become an official, so he took his whole family to live deep in the forest. A tiger often crouched outside their fence, watching the house. N.H.A. Thock told his family, "We need to be cautious of this tiger and prevent it from breaking into our house." He built a wall around the house and planted many thorny plants outside the wall. As soon as the sun rose, they would bang gongs and make noise to scare the tiger away. When bandits came down from the mountains, they lit a big fire which scared the tiger because it feared the flames. After a year, everyone in the house remained safe. During a harsh winter one night, the hungry tiger couldn't catch any prey and thought of breaking into N.H.A. Thock's house to catch a pig. Although it was very afraid of the fire, hunger forced it to take a risk. It leaped over the fire, scratched at the wall, but the thorns pierced it, causing it to fall back into the flames. The burns made it scream and run away, scaring the other animals in the forest. The tiger couldn't get into N.H.A. Thock's house and died of starvation a few days later. With the tiger dead, N.H.A. Thock was very happy. He told his family, "Now we're safe. We have nothing to fear anymore." Over time, the fence broke down and no one repaired it. A corner of the wall collapsed due to rain, but no one cared. The thorny plants gradually died and they stopped lighting fires. One night, another wild beast broke into the house and killed everyone in N.H.A. Thock's family. Later, when people talked about this story, they said, "N.H.A. Thock only guarded against the tiger, But there are many things that can harm people. They died because they weren't careful. 46. Endless questions. A little chick's curiosity. One day, a little chick kept clinging to the big rooster, asking questions. Why is Miss Heron's beak so long and her legs so tall while mine are so tiny? Step back. Why does Mr. Rabbit have such long ears and I don't even have the smallest earlobes? Stop bothering me. Why does the kitten have such beautiful fur and I only have a few sparse feathers? That's enough. Why can Mr. Puppy wag his tail, but I don't have any tail at all? Quiet down. Why does the young goat have horns and I don't even have the tiniest ones? Enough! Move back! The big rooster was furious. It's always move back, move back. Why do adults answer kids' questions, but you don't? The little chick complained. Because you're not asking, you're just being jealous, the big rooster replied sternly. And that was the absolute truth. 47. Let go of resentment. In life, we meet many people and go through various experiences. Some of these people may drive us crazy and make us so angry that we grit our teeth in hatred. Some situations might tie us down, even making it hard to eat or sleep. When we hold on to resentment, we are essentially imprisoning our hearts. Our eyes stay fixed on the person we resent, leading us to act unconsciously towards them. Gradually, our lives become less true to ourselves. Resentment is like a painful scar that hurts every time we think about it. The more we cling to it, the harder it is to heal. Therefore, in life, it's good to be a bit forgetful. Let go of past anger and resentment towards others. Letting go is the best way to free ourselves. One day, when we finally let go of these burdens, we will realize that the warm sunlight, which we haven't seen in a long time, now shines brightly on us again. 48. Be yourself. You don't have to be like your mother unless you want to be. Nor do you need to be like your grandmother, your great-grandmother, or someone from your father's side of the family. You might inherit a chin, a build, or a pair of eyes from them, but you don't have to be someone who was born before you. You don't need to live their lives. If you inherit something from your family line, choose to take on their strength and resilience. Because the only person you need to resemble is the one you decide to be. One time, President Calvin Coolidge invited some hometown friends to a dinner at the White House. Worried about proper dining etiquette, the guests decided to mimic whatever Coolidge did. Everything went smoothly until coffee was served. The president poured his coffee into his saucer. The guests followed suit. Coolidge added sugar and cream. The guests did the same. Then Coolidge bent down and placed the saucer on the floor for his cat. 49. The Buddha and the Demon. There was once a very famous painter in a certain region. One day he wanted to paint the Buddha and a demon, but when he tried to start, he couldn't find the right inspiration for their images. Despite trying many times, he couldn't create satisfactory depictions of the Buddha or the demon. He grew increasingly anxious. One day, by chance, he encountered someone with an extraordinary presence and was deeply impressed by this person. The painter decided to find this individual and promised a generous payment if the person would model for him. After the painting was completed, it caused a sensation in the area. The painter said, "This is the painting I am most proud of because the model truly made everyone believe he was the reincarnation of the Buddha. His serene and pure aura touched everyone who saw it." The painter kept his promise and paid the model a large sum of money. Thanks to this painting, people no longer called him just a painter but referred to him as the Saint of Painting. After some time, the painter decided to paint a picture of a demon, which posed another challenge. Where could he find a real-life model for a demon? He searched many places and looked at many fierce-looking people but was never satisfied. Eventually, he found the person he needed in a prison cell. The painter was delighted because finding someone who looked like a real demon was very difficult. When he faced the prisoner suddenly burst into tears. The painter was puzzled and asked why he was crying. The prisoner replied, "Why did you come to me when you painted the Buddha, and now for the demon as well?" The painter was shocked and looked closely at the prisoner, saying, "How is this possible? The person I found to model for the Buddha had an extraordinary presence, while you clearly have the characteristics of a demon. How can you be the same person? This is unbelievable." The prisoner sadly answered, "You turned me from a Buddha into a demon." The painter said, "What do you mean? I didn't do anything to you." The prisoner explained, "After receiving a large sum of money from you, I began to live a lavish lifestyle, spending money freely. When the money ran out, I was already used to that extravagant life and couldn't bear to live in poverty. Unable to accept the truth, I started robbing and stealing. I did anything for money, leading to my current state." The painter was stunned by the prisoner's story and realized how quickly human nature can change when faced with personal desires. Once a person gives in to material desires, it's easy to go astray. Once trapped in that pit, it's hard to escape. Therefore, one should not have boundless greed. After telling this story, the monk closed his eyes and said no more. The listener realized the answer he sought through the monk's 3 stories. The most terrifying thing in this world is human greed. The more one desires, the harder it is to be satisfied. Lack of satisfaction leads to unhappiness, and troubles arise from there. 50. The Donkey and the Seal. There was a beautiful tree growing right in the middle of the field. Mr. Donkey was running across the field looking around without paying much attention, and he ran smack into the tree, seeing stars. Annoyed, he went to the riverbank and called out to the seal, "Hey, seal, did you know there's a tree in the middle of the field?" "Of course, I know about it." "Then go knock it down for me. You have sharp teeth after all." "Why should I do that? I just ran into it and my face is all swollen up. It's such a hassle." "Where were you looking?" "Where was I looking? I was just distracted for a moment, and look what happened. Just go knock down that tree already." "But it would be a shame to cut it down. It beautifies the whole field." "But it's in my way. Take it down, please." "I don't want to." "Is it too much trouble?" "It's not about trouble, but I won't do it." "Why not?" "Because if I cut down the tree, you'll just run into the stump. Then dig up the stump too. If I dig up the stump, you'll fall into the hole and hurt your leg." "Why?" "Because you're a donkey." 51. 3 times of regret. CUCKOO was a stubborn man who always thought he was right and liked to do the opposite of others. He used to farm in the north of Quezon. He planted rice on dry mountain slopes and crops in the damp lowlands. His friend disagreed. Rice likes wet conditions and should be planted in the lowlands. Crops that tolerate dryness should be on the slopes. Doing the opposite will not yield good results. CUCKOO didn't listen, and for 10 years his family struggled to have enough food. He then observed his friend's farming methods and saw that planting rice in wet areas and crops in dry areas resulted in a good harvest. He apologized to his friend. "I was wrong before. I should have listened to you." Later, he went to do business in Van Thuong. He thought his past failure was due to not following others, so he decided to imitate them. He bought what others bought and sold what others sold. His friends advised, "You can't always follow others. Your goods will arrive after everyone else's, and the market will be full by then. A good businessman brings in unique products to make big profits when the opportunity comes." CUCKOO ignored this advice, and after another 10 years he was broke, even losing his business capital. Remembering his friend's advice from a decade earlier, he apologized again. You were right. I regret not listening to you. Later, Jock Thuck went fishing with a friend in the East Sea. Near a whirlpool, his friend warned, "Don't go further. There's a whirlpool ahead and we won't be able to get out." Jock Thuck believed there were many fish ahead and ignored his friend, continuing forward. His boat got caught in the whirlpool, but a big fish's struggles created waves that freed the boat. Now old, with gray hair and a frail body, he sought out his old friend, bowed twice and pointed to the sky. "I was too stubborn before. I swear to change from now on." His friend laughed and said, "You're old now, and your youth is gone. What good is regret at this point?"
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
52. The Wolf's Last Wish. The wolf decided to hang himself and let the whole forest know about it. "No way! He's going to hang himself, just wait!" the rabbit scoffed mockingly. "He really means to do it. He's definitely decided," the turtle said. "Maybe he'll change his mind," the hedgehog suggested. "He won't change his mind! No way! He's already picked a willow tree as his spot," the crow confirmed. "He's off to find more rope now." The forest was abuzz with discussion. Some believed it, others doubted. The news reached the stork. He flew straight into the forest to find the wolf. He found the wolf sitting sadly under the willow tree, looking utterly dejected. The stork's heart clenched in pain. Although he had never been fond of the wolf and had never invited him over, seeing him this way felt like a tragedy. "Hello, Mr. Wolf," the stork greeted him softly. "Hello and goodbye," the wolf replied, wiping a tear from his eye. "Goodbye. Don't be sad. Please forgive me if there's anything—" "You're really going to hang yourself?" the stork asked, cautiously incredulous. "Can it be true? Why? What happened?" "I've been humiliated, insulted both in fables and fairy tales. I don't want to live another day. Help me. Find me a rope. Look in the storeroom. It's locked, but people trust you. You can get in." "All right, I'll help you," the stork agreed without hesitation. "Thank you so much," the wolf said gratefully. "Oh, and while you're at it, could you bring me a little goat too? Try to fulfill my last wish." The stork did fulfill the wolf's last wish, and the wolf, in the end, decided not to hang himself. He had a change of heart. 53. Please be someone who easily forgets. Look at the people around us. You'll find that those with good memories often live uncomfortable lives. These people carry many people and events in their hearts and can't let go, trapping themselves and constantly struggling in pain. Life is too short to waste on suffering, so why not be someone who forgets easily? Don't let past people and events hold you back. Life needs to move forward. Let go of others, let go of the past, and let go of yourself. 54. Life lessons I've learned. I've learned that I can't make everyone love me, but what I can do is strive to be someone worthy of love. I've learned that it's okay to be angry with someone, but that doesn't justify becoming cruel to others. I've learned that even the best of friends can hurt me at times, and I must learn to forgive them. I've learned that before I can forgive others, I need to forgive myself. I've learned that just because someone doesn't love me the way I want them to, it doesn't mean they don't love me with all they have. I've learned that it takes years to build trust with others, but only a second to lose it. I've learned to be careful because the mistakes I make in an instant can lead to a lifetime of regret. 55. Dedicated to the way. One spring morning, a kind-hearted king visited villages to meet the people and give gifts to the poor for the new year. This was also a chance for him to understand the lives and feelings of his subjects. The king often encouraged everyone to follow the three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and to practice vegetarianism. He also promoted good deeds, being filial to parents and harmony among siblings. He exempted taxes for those who followed his advice. Everyone obeyed him. However, they were just pretending to be virtuous while hiding their wicked actions. During his visit, the king saw people's true nature and thought about how to improve their behavior. 1 week later, the king issued a decree. From now on, anyone who continues to practice Buddhism will be sentenced to death. Those who do not follow Buddhism will be free to pursue their careers without fear. Naturally, the hypocrites reverted to their old ways without hiding anymore. However, one morning an old man in tattered clothes was brought to the palace courtyard. He had defied the king's order and remained a Buddhist. He thought, "Though I am poor and only have 1 meal of rice and vegetables a day, I am happy because I follow the 3 jewels and listen to the Buddha's teachings. Even if I lived a wealthy life or went to heaven without hearing a single Buddhist sutra, it would be like being in prison." The old man respectfully said, "Your Majesty, I have broken your order, so please execute me." The king replied, "If you repent and follow my new decree, I will pardon you and give you a title. But if you defy the law, I will execute you to set an example." The old man humbly responded, "Your Majesty, even if I could become a king by abandoning the true path, I would not desire all the pleasures in this world." The king warned, "If you defy me, I will execute you immediately." The old man said, "Your Majesty, the Buddhist scriptures teach that it is hard to be reborn as a human and even harder to be born in a land where one can hear the Dharma. I am fortunate to know the 3 jewels and understand some Buddhist teachings, so I must have worked hard in a past life. Even if you throw me into boiling water or fire, I will stay true to the 3 jewels." The king, intrigued, asked, "Who are you to be so bold? You face death without fear." "I am Thant Tien Su," the old man replied. "Execute me if you wish. I will never complain or beg." Quickly, the king ordered soldiers to take the old man to the execution ground. As swords were raised to his neck, Thant Tien Su calmly and cheerfully advised his son, "My child, you are blessed to know the Dharma. Stay firm in your studies and follow my example. Even if I lose my life due to the king's strict order, I am happy to remain true to the way." After his words, a court official ordered the soldiers to bring the old man back to the palace. When the official reported Thant Tien Su's final advice to his son, the king was moved to tears. He stepped down from his throne, went to the palace gate, and embraced Thant Tien Su. Everyone was astonished, including the old man. The king brought him into the palace kindly. Though Thant Tien Su did not understand what was happening, he bowed to thank the king. The king lifted him up and said warmly, "In this nation, only you, Thant Tien Su, are truly devoted to Buddhism. Everyone else is hypocritical and selfish. My decree was a test of people's hearts. From now on, live with me and help spread the Dharma to awaken people's minds." They conversed joyfully, and the king appointed Thant Tien Su as prime minister. This story spread widely among the people. Soon, everyone returned to Buddhism, and the nation prospered in peace and happiness. This king was a previous incarnation of Buddha Shakyamuni. This story teaches us that whether happy or suffering, or when facing death, people often turn to Buddhism to ease their pain and seek enlightenment for their lives. 56. The Balloon Philosophy. One day, some white children were playing in the park when an old man selling balloons pushed his cart in. The children ran over to him excitedly, each buying a balloon, and joyfully chased after their balloons as they floated in the wind. In a corner of the park, a black child sat alone, too shy to join the other children. After the white children disappeared, he approached the old man's cart and asked earnestly, "Can you sell me a balloon?" The old man looked at him kindly and said, "Of course. Which color would you like?" The child, gaining courage, replied, "I want the black one." The black child happily took the black balloon, let it go, and watched as it floated up into the sky, standing out against the blue sky and white clouds, creating a unique picture. The old man watched the balloon rise and gently patted the child's head, saying, "Remember, a balloon rises not because of its color or shape, but because of the helium inside. A person's success depends not on their race or background, but on their self-confidence." That black child was Keene, who later became a famous psychologist in America. 57. What really matters? A few years ago, at the Special Olympics in Seattle, 9 athletes lined up at the starting line for the 95-meter dash. All of them had physical or mental disabilities. When the starting gun went off, everyone was determined to run to the finish line as fast as possible to be the winner. Suddenly, a boy tripped and fell on the track. He tumbled multiple times and began to cry. The other 8 athletes heard him and started to slow down. Then they stopped completely. They all turned around and went back to the boy. A girl with Down syndrome bent down, kissed him, and said, "This will make you feel better." Then all 9 athletes held hands and walked to the finish line together. Everyone in the stadium stood up and cheered for the athletes for 10 minutes straight. 58. A lesson to remember. Big Bear always bullied Little Rabbit. For no reason at all, he would grab Rabbit and slap him so hard that one of Rabbit's ears became crooked. Poor Rabbit cried and cried for a long time. Even after his ear stopped hurting and his tears had dried, he still felt the pain. What should he do? Why did he always have to run into Bear, time after time? Rabbit had never had to endure such treatment before. But who could possibly help him? Bear was the strongest in the forest, and Wolf and Fox, his close friends, would often back him up. "Who can help me?" Rabbit lamented. "I will!" someone cried out. Rabbit glanced with his left eye and saw Mosquito. "How can you help me?" "You are too small to take on Bear. He's huge and you are so tiny. You're not strong enough," Rabbit said. "Just wait and see," Mosquito replied. Bear had been wandering all day in the hot forest. Tired and sleepy, he rolled into a patch of blackberry bushes to rest. But just as he was about to close his eyes, he heard a buzzing noise near his ear. Bzzz! Bear knew it was Mosquito. He held his breath, waiting for Mosquito to land on his nose. Mosquito flew around, and finally landed right on the tip of Bear's nose. Bear quickly slapped his left hand onto his nose. That taught him a lesson. Bear turned over to his right side and closed his eyes, but just as he was dozing off, he heard the buzzing again. Bzzz! The Mosquito should have left then. Bear held his breath and lay still, pretending to be deeply asleep, but all the while he listened, waiting for Mosquito to find another place to land. But Mosquito just kept buzzing and buzzing, then suddenly stopped. "Finally, I'm free," Bear thought to himself and stretched out. But Mosquito quietly landed on Bear's ear and crawled inside. Mosquito bit Bear sharply. Bear jumped up. He swung his right hand, hitting his ear so hard that he saw stars. Definitely, that hit took care of the pesky Mosquito for good. Bear scratched his ear and settled down. He could finally sleep. But just as he was about to close his eyes, he heard the familiar bzzz. "It's unbearable!" Bear groaned, got up, and ran from the spot where Mosquito had cornered him. He tripped, crashing through bushes, yawning with a gaping jaw, staggering sleepily until he nearly fell down. Yet Mosquito was still right beside him. Bzzz! Bear kept running. He ran until he was out of breath and collapsed under a bush. He lay there panting, pricking up his ears to listen for Mosquito. The forest was very quiet and as dark as ink. All the birds and animals were sound asleep, except Bear, who tossed and turned, nearly fainting from exhaustion. Such misery, Bear muttered to himself. That darn mosquito has caused me so much trouble. I can't even remember my own name. Lucky I managed to escape. Now, at last, I might get some sleep. Bear moved under a large hazel bush. He closed his eyes and fell into a deep sleep. He started dreaming he was in the forest, about to stick his hand into a honey-filled beehive when he heard a distant zzz. Mosquito had found Bear and once again woke him up. Bear sat up, groaning. Meanwhile, Mosquito continued to fly around his head, coming close, then moving away, buzzing loudly, then softly, until suddenly Mosquito stopped completely. Mosquito had disappeared. Bear waited a moment, then crawled to a nearby bush and closed his eyes, relieved. He was just dozing off when suddenly Mosquito started singing bzzz. Bear crawled out of the bush. He started to cry. "What do you want, you pest? I hope you die. Just wait. I won't sleep a wink anymore. I'll catch you, just you watch." Mosquito had kept Bear dancing until sunrise. It had completely exhausted him. All night Bear had not rested a moment. He had beaten himself black and blue trying to catch the pesky mosquito to no avail. The sun rose. The birds and animals woke up after a restful night. They hopped and sang happily. Only Bear was not happy at the start of a new day. Rabbit met Bear at the edge of the forest that morning. Bear stumbled, tripped, and shuffled along. He could hardly open his eyes from sheer sleepiness. Rabbit laughed heartily. He laughed so hard he almost burst. "Thank you, Mosquito," Rabbit cheerfully said as he spotted Mosquito. "Did you see Bear?" "Of course," Rabbit replied, then burst out laughing again. "You see, I'm not as small and weak as people think, right?" After saying this, Mosquito flew off, singing buzz. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time. 59. Zen Master's response. Is that so? There's a story in Japanese Zen Buddhism about the Zen master Hakuin Ikaku, 1686 to 1768. He was known for his humility, simple lifestyle, and peaceful demeanor. Near the temple where he lived, there was a merchant family. One day, the family discovered that their daughter was pregnant but didn't know who the father was. Under pressure and threats from her family, the girl claimed that Zen Master Hakuin was the father of her child. Outraged, the family went to the temple and demanded that Hakuin take responsibility. Hearing the accusation, the Zen master simply responded, "Is that so?" After the girl gave birth, the newborn was brought to the temple. Zen master Hakuin took care of the baby, seeking milk and clothes from the villagers and nurturing the child as if he were his own. Despite the serious damage to his reputation, whenever anyone questioned him about it, he would only say, "Is that so?" As the child grew, it became clear that he didn't resemble the Zen master. The villagers began to suspect that Hakuin was innocent. Eventually, the girl couldn't keep the truth hidden any longer. She confessed that the baby's father was actually a fishmonger from the market. Begging for forgiveness, she admitted her lie. Zen Master Hakuin's response remained the same. Is that so? 60. Beauty. Bear and Wolf were sitting together, chatting about everything under the sun. Nearby, a butterfly was fluttering around. She flew from one tree to another. Seeing the butterfly, Bear watched her closely. "Look at that," he said to Wolf. "Isn't it marvelous?" "Where?" Wolf asked. "Right there, on the tree branch just above your head. A butterfly! How beautiful she is!" "On that butterfly's body?" Wolf sneered. "Don't you like that butterfly?" Bear was surprised. "What's so special about that butterfly?" "No need to say," Bear argued. "Look how she flits about so gracefully. The patterns on her wings are just beautiful. Truly wonderful." Graceful patterns? I don't see anything special at all. But there are no buts. Not long ago, I saw a young, plump lamb. Oh, all that meat, Wolf said, his eyes gleaming. Now that is what I call beautiful. Ah, Bear said, sounding disappointed. I think I understand you now. 61. Respect others. There are often words we feel we need to say out loud to feel satisfied. Speaking our minds can be a great joy. However, this joy should be built on the basic foundation of respecting others. It's important to speak in a way that doesn't make others uncomfortable or annoyed, which is an art of social interaction. Nature gave us 2 ears but only 1 mouth to remind us to speak less and listen more. To truly listen, we must set aside our egos, fully understand the feelings of the other person, and genuinely care about them. Listening is challenging for this very reason. Everyone has the right to express themselves, but in many cases, controlling our mouths can lead to better outcomes than talking endlessly. Once in a small American town, there was a boy who tried to jump as high as the moon. His mother, curious, asked, "What are you doing?" The boy excitedly pointed to the bright moon and said, "I want to jump up there." The mother was startled but remained silent, listening to her son's imaginative talk about his journey to the sky. After listening, the mother smiled, patted his head, and said, "That's great, but remember to come home for dinner." Years later, Neil Armstrong became the first person to walk on the moon. Armstrong was that little boy. If his mother hadn't listened to his seemingly impossible dream and instead got angry or interrupted him, would the world have known such a great Armstrong? The book Taigong's Strategy says, "The mouth is the gate of the heart." A person who speaks with anger loses more the more they talk. A well-cultivated person always makes room for others in their heart, never interrupts, and knows how to listen and understand. Someone who listens doesn't need to do much. Just sitting there and attentively listening can enrich their inner self. Heaven gives everyone an equal amount of fortune. Some lose their fortune quickly due to anger, while others maintain it for life through self-cultivation. The better one's temper, the more fortune they have. Viewing the world with a kind heart and treating others with kindness, being less impatient, naturally brings more blessings. 62. The Optimist, a young boy's unwavering positivity amidst family tragedy. We are fortunate to have 3 wonderful sons. Our middle son, Billy, is nicknamed the Optimist. He is always the first one awake, jumping into our bed at 5 a.m. Even though we remind him to be quiet and go back to sleep, he would whisper grumpily, "It's going to be a beautiful morning. I can hear the birds singing outside." When we tell Billy to be quiet, he replies, "I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to myself." At preschool, his teacher asked the class to draw a picture of a tiger. Billy isn't great at drawing, and his tiger ended up with one eye closed and the other half open. When his teacher asked why the tiger was winking, Billy said, "Because he's saying, 'I'm watching you, kid.'" Once, he argued with his older brother about whether a man on TV was really bald. Billy insisted, "He's not bald. He's only bald when you look at him. When you look away, he has lots of hair." Our youngest son fell seriously ill with a kidney disease on a Tuesday and passed away the following Friday. The evening after Tanner's funeral, I lay beside Billy to talk, as usual. That night, we lay in the dark, mostly silent. Suddenly, Billy said to me, "I'm really sad about what happened to our family, but I'm even sadder for many other people." Who was he talking about? The people who never knew Tanner. Aren't we lucky to have had Tanner for 20 months? Think about it. Many people never get the chance to meet him. We really are the lucky ones. 63. Just bend down. Jesus and his disciple Peter were traveling together. On their journey, they saw an old, rusty horseshoe. Jesus asked Peter to pick it up, but Peter, not wanting to bend down, pretended he didn't hear. Jesus said nothing, bent down, picked up the horseshoe, and traded it with a nearby blacksmith for 3 coins. He then used the money to buy 18 cherries. As they left the city and walked across a vast wilderness, Jesus guessed that Peter was very thirsty. Quietly, Jesus dropped a cherry from his sleeve onto the ground. Peter saw it, quickly picked it up, and ate it. Jesus kept dropping cherries, and Peter bent down to pick them up 18 times. Jesus then said to Peter, "If you had just bent down once earlier, you wouldn't have had to bend so many times." Ignoring small tasks can make even smaller tasks harder. Not knowing when to bend down or bending down too little is foolish. Bending down before those who humiliate you is stupidity. It might be tiring to bend down, but if farmers didn't bend down, how could they harvest their crops? 64. Tommy's essay. In just a moment, Tommy's parents, who recently separated, will be arriving for a parent-teacher conference about his declining grades and disruptive behavior. However, neither of them knows that they have been invited at the same time. Tommy, their only son, used to be a cheerful, obedient, and excellent student. Now, I am at a loss for words to explain to Tommy's parents that his recent academic decline is a reaction to the deep pain he is experiencing from their separation and impending divorce. Tommy's mother enters the room and sits down on the chair I had set up near my desk. Soon after, Tommy's father arrives. They deliberately ignore each other. As I hand them Tommy's detailed report on his behavior and academic performance, I secretly hope to find a way to bring them closer together and make them realize the impact their actions have had on their son. Yet for some reason I find myself unable to speak. Perhaps one of the carelessly scribbled notes that Tommy wrote might help them understand. I find the crumpled, tear-stained piece of paper in Tommy's desk drawer. The writing, messy and repetitive, covers both sides of the paper. I smooth out the paper gently and hand it to Tommy's mother. She reads it and silently passes it to her husband. Tommy's father frowns, but then his face softens. Time seems to stand still as he silently reads and rereads the scrawled lines of his son. Finally, he carefully folds the paper, takes his wife's hand and holds it. She wipes the tears from her eyes and smiles at him. My eyes also well up with tears, but it seems that no one notices. God has shown me a way to reunite Tommy's family. He helped me find the note filled with heartfelt, sorrowful words from their son. "Dear Dad, dear Mom, I love both of you. I love both of you. I love both of you." 65. Forget about the favor you did. There's an old saying, if you do a favor, don't expect a return. If you expect a return, don't do the favor. But in life, some people help others and then feel like the other person owes them. They always expect gratitude and a return favor. When interacting with the person they helped, they act superior and disrespectful. Once or twice might be okay, but if this happens often, it makes the person who received the help feel uncomfortable. This, in turn, makes the helper feel even more unhappy, thinking the other person is ungrateful. They feel their kindness was wasted, leading to disappointment, anger, and even resentment. Helping others is a good thing, but if you keep holding on to it in your heart, it becomes a burden. This makes it hard for you to live happily. Everyone needs help at some point, so remember the help you receive from others more than the help you give. This way, your life will be much lighter and more enjoyable. 66. Little ALMIE Rose. 2 months before Christmas, our 9-year-old daughter, ALMIE Rose, mentioned that she wanted a new bike. But as Christmas approached, it seemed like she had forgotten about that wish. We bought her a popular nanny doll set along with a dollhouse. However, contrary to our thoughts, just 2 days before Christmas, ALMIE Rose still expressed that she preferred a bike over any other toy in the world. By then, it was too late. With hundreds of things to prepare for the Christmas party and last-minute gift shopping, we didn't have time to pick out the perfect bike for ALMIE Rose. At 9 p.m. on Christmas Eve, while ALMIE Rose and her 6-year-old brother Dylan were snug in their beds, my husband and I were still awake, feeling guilty for disappointing our daughter. Maybe I should make a bike out of clay and write a note saying she can exchange this clay bike for a real one, my husband suggested. It seemed like a good idea since bikes were hard to buy, and she was already a big girl who didn't fuss over presents. So my husband spent 4 hours sculpting a miniature bike. On Christmas morning, we were really anxious as ALMIE Rose opened the heart-shaped package containing the red and white clay bike. Finally, she opened it and read the note aloud. "Is it true that I can exchange this clay bike Dad made for a real bike?" "Yes, my love," I replied, with a big smile. Tears sparkled in ALMIE Rose's eyes as she said, "I will never exchange the bike Dad made for me. I like keeping this one more than getting a real bike." At that moment, we felt so happy that we would go to the ends of the earth to buy any bike for our daughter.
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
67. A Buddha statue or a pile of manure. One day, Su Dongpo went to visit the monk Fo Yin for a chat. They sat cross-legged, facing each other, discussing Zen. While they were having a good time, Su Dongpo asked Fo Yin, "What do I look like to you right now?" Monk Fo Yin replied, "I see you as a Buddha statue." Seeing Fo Yin's round figure in black robes, Su Dongpo immediately responded, "And I see you as a pile of cow manure." Monk Fo Yin just smiled and said nothing. Su Dongpo felt very proud, thinking he had won. When he got home, he boasted about it to his younger sister. After hearing the story, Su Dongpo's sister said, "Oh no, you lost. The monk's mind is as vast as the Buddha's realm, so he saw you as a Buddha. But your mind is like cow manure, so you saw the monk as a pile of manure." Hearing his sister's words, Su Dongpo blushed with embarrassment, realizing he had lost badly. Moral: the more open-hearted a person is, the more they see goodness in others. A narrow-minded person only sees ugliness. Being tolerant and generous to others is a blessing for oneself. 68. The deer in the cow barn. A deer wandered into a village while roaming in the forest and accidentally got spotted by a hunting dog. The dog started barking loudly and chased after the deer. Frightened, the deer ran into a farmer's yard, looking for a place to hide. With no other option left, the deer pleaded with the cows in the barn, "Please help me. Let me hide among you." A kind cow responded, "Oh dear, you're in a tough spot. Why did you run here? Hiding here is like walking into a trap." The deer replied, "Just let me hide here for a while, and I might have a chance to escape." As the sound of the barking dog faded, the deer didn't leave immediately. Later in the afternoon, the herder came to feed the livestock but didn't notice the deer. The house manager and the servants also passed by the barn without spotting the deer. Feeling finally safe, the deer thanked the cows. A cow warned him, "You should leave quickly. Even though we want to protect you, there's still someone else who will come by. He's very meticulous. If he doesn't find you, then you are truly safe." Just then, the meticulous man entered the barn, complaining about the quality of the cow's feed and the thin layer of hay. While checking the barn thoroughly, he spotted the deer's antlers sticking out from the hay and called for help to capture and butcher the deer. Moral of the story: don't let a moment of comfort make you forget the dangers around you. 69. Growing up is a journey. If growing up is like a tree blooming, then maturity is like the tree bearing fruit. From seedlings to blossoming flowers, each tree goes through a growth process, but not every flower turns into fruit. Just growing up doesn't mean becoming mature. Maturity is like a state of mind. It's like being your own light in a dark sky. When you're lost in the fog, a mature person knows to slow down, stay calm, and grow stronger through hardships, waiting patiently during stormy times. Mature people understand that everyone has a purpose. They know that people are not as simple as they appear, and that everyone has strengths and weaknesses. As someone matures, they realize that life requires tolerance for themselves, for others, and even for their enemies. The ocean can take in hundreds of rivers and become vast. Tolerating others' mistakes is also freeing oneself. Life is fleeting. Black hair turns to white in a moment. A mature heart doesn't get caught up in temporary gains and losses. The stronger the wind, the calmer the heart. The heavier the rain, the firmer the will. 70. Living in the present. Buddha asked his disciples, "How long is a human life?" The disciples took turns answering, 80 years. Wrong. 70 years. Still wrong. 60 years. Wrong again. Then how long do people live? Buddha smiled and replied, "A person's life lasts only as long as a single breath." Commentary. Don't rely on the past or the future. Live in the present. 71. The King and His Four Wives. Once upon a time, there was a rich king who ruled over a powerful kingdom. He had 4 beautiful wives. The king loved his 4th wife the most and always indulged her desires without refusal. Next was his 3rd wife, whom he always feared losing and wanted to take everywhere with him. His 2nd wife was his emotional support, very kind, gentle, and patient. Whenever the king faced difficulties, he confided in her and often received valuable advice. His 1st wife was the most loyal, helping him govern and making the country even more prosperous. Yet the king did not show much affection for her. He thought she could take care of herself, so he seldom paid attention to her. Unfortunately, one day the king fell ill and knew he did not have long to live. He thought, "I have 4 wives, but when I die, I fear I will be completely alone." With this in mind, the king called his 4th wife and said, "I have loved you most, always giving you the best. Now that I am dying, will you follow me so I won't be alone?" The king received the answer, "You have been very good to me, but that request is too difficult. I cannot do it." The king felt cold with sadness and disappointment. He then called his 3rd wife, who replied, "No, dear king, life is still beautiful, and another king will come to cherish me." He next called his 2nd wife. "You have always helped and advised me. Will you follow me?" the king asked. "I can't help you this time," the 2nd wife replied, "but I promise to take care of you until your last moments, then escort you to your place of rest, and I will always remember you." The king felt completely hopeless. He had forgotten his 1st wife until he heard a voice beside him. "I will follow you wherever you go, even to the realm of death." It was his 1st wife who looked tired and weak. Saddened and full of regret for how he had treated her, the king exclaimed, "I should have taken better care of and loved you more." You've just read a fairy tale about a king and his queens. Although we don't live in a fairy tale world, think of it this way. If we are like that king, each of us has 4 wives too. Our 4th wife is our body. Almost everyone worries and takes care of their body the most, wanting to look beautiful. But when we pass away, the body disappears, leaving nothing behind. Our 3rd wife is named status and wealth. These are the easiest to lose because they are material. When we no longer live, the status disappears and the wealth will belong to someone else. Our 2nd wife is our family and friends. They always care and help, comfort and advise, but they can only look after us until the very end and then mourn us, Our first wife is our soul. Not everyone remembers it in a world where everyone races for wealth and status to satisfy their egos. Yet, the soul is the only thing that always accompanies us wherever we go, and it is what people will remember us by no matter where we are. So, dear friend, take care of and love your soul the most. Don't end up like the king in the story dying with a weak and weary soul. 72. Rich and poor. I overheard a conversation between two classmates. What do you usually do on Saturday nights? Weekend parties with friends, drinking coffee, hitting the streets, going to bars, basically staying out all night. How can you afford that? I have money. What about you? Probably buy a new book that just came out yesterday and read it back at the dorm. Such a country bumpkin. Saigon on a Saturday night glows with lights. Motorbikes of all kinds covered in colorful decals zoom by like the wind. Groups of 19 and 20-year-olds laugh and chat loudly in the streets, riding in pairs, then in threes, blocking the way for the vehicles behind them, weaving and joking. Cafes, supermarkets, and nightclubs are packed, mostly with young people. Amid the noisy traffic, I noticed the small figure of my classmate stopping by a display of discounted books. What are you looking for? Great books about life. My friend smiled happily. Not going out this weekend? No, I'm too poor to go out. I spent all my money on books. Then my small friend rode away on her bike, very happy and confident. No, my friend, you are not poor. When you know how to use your little money to enrich yourself, you are wealthy. Meanwhile, tonight, there are those who are making themselves poor with the millions their parents earned through hard work. There are riches that aren't gold or silver, and there are things that last a long time without living 1,000 years. 73. Finger pointing at the moon. Wu Jinkang, a monk, asked the sixth patriarch Huineng, I have been studying the Mahaparinirvana Sutra for many years, yet I still don't understand it. Could you please enlighten me? Huineng, who was illiterate, handed the scripture to the monk and said, I can't read, so please read it aloud and I will help you understand. How can you understand the meaning if you can't read? Jinkang asked, quite surprised. Huineng replied calmly, Truth does not depend on words. It's like the moon shining in the sky. In this case, words are like a finger pointing. The finger points to the moon, but it is not the moon itself. Do you need a finger to see the moon? Commentary. Words and language are merely symbols representing truth. Do not confuse words with the actual truth, just as one should not mistake the finger pointing for the moon itself. 74. The Loving Box. Once upon a time, there was a man who was scolding his 3-year-old daughter for wasting some golden wrapping paper. The family was struggling, and money issues were a constant source of stress for him. The father was furious when he saw his daughter trying to decorate a box to place under the Christmas tree. However, the next morning, the little girl brought the gift to her father and said, This present is for you, Daddy. The man felt embarrassed for having yelled at his little girl, but his anger returned when he opened the box. It was empty. He yelled at his daughter, Don't you know that when you give someone a present, what's inside is supposed to be what brings them joy and surprise? The little girl, with tears in her eyes, looked up at her father and cried, Daddy, it's not an empty box. I blew all my kisses into it. I wanted to give them all to you. Stunned, the man wrapped his arms around his little girl, so innocent and lovable, and tearfully apologized. Sadly, the little girl passed away not long after. The father kept that golden wrapped box by his bedside for many years. Whenever he felt down, he would take out the imaginary kisses and remember the love of his child who had filled the box with all her trust and affection. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time. 75. The Story of the Hungry Dog. When Buddha was alive, there was a very cruel king. When he heard that Buddha had come to preach in his country, he immediately went to see him and asked for a story. Buddha decided to tell him the story of the hungry dog. Long ago, there was a ruthless king who was very harsh on his people, causing them much grief. Seeing this, a heavenly figure descended to earth with a fierce demon. This figure transformed into a hunter, and the demon turned into a large dog. The hunter took the dog to the king's palace for an audience. Suddenly, the dog started howling loudly, which terrified the king. He summoned the hunter before his throne and asked, "Why is this dog howling so fiercely?" The hunter replied, "Your Majesty, it is howling because it is hungry." The king then ordered that food be given to the dog. However, the more food it was given, the more it ate, depleting the royal stores without being satisfied, and it continued to howl even more fiercely. Worse still, each howl seemed to shake the palace as if it was about to collapse. In a hurry, the king asked the hunter, "What can we feed it to make it stop?" The hunter answered, "Your Majesty, if it is fed the flesh of those it despises, it will stop howling." The king inquired, "Whom does this dog despise?" The hunter explained, "This dog despises those who are unjust and oppress the poor. It will stop howling the day there are no more people suffering from hunger in your kingdom." As Buddha finished this story, the king turned pale, remembering his own cruel deeds and feeling deep remorse. From then on, he resolved to change his ways. Buddha gently advised the king, "As long as you hear the dogs howling, remember this story. You have the power to silence it." This story teaches us that even a dog knows its limits and rules, let alone humans. Through the image of the hungry dog, the king began to trust in Buddha's teachings, governing his people with righteousness and integrity, and devoted himself to serving the sacred three jewels. 76. The King and the Parrot. The king and the prince each had a parrot. These two parrots were also father and son. The king loved the father parrot while the prince preferred the son parrot. Additionally, the prince had a beautiful sparrow that brought him much joy. One day, the young parrot and the sparrow fought over some roast meat. The young parrot pecked the sparrow nearly to death. The sparrow looked miserable, with its head down and wings drooping. The prince was very angry and ordered the young parrot to be killed. When the father parrot heard this, he was heartbroken. Enraged, he attacked the prince and blinded him. Fearing the king's revenge, the father parrot flew to a pine tree and hid at the top. The king wanted to trick the father parrot into coming back, so he went to the pine tree and said, "My dear parrot, come back to me." "No, I can't come back," the father parrot firmly replied. "Parrot, come back to me, and we'll live as we used to," the king gently coaxed. "If I come back, you will kill me. We are friends. Why would I harm you?" "Because you want to avenge your son." "I promise I won't harm you. The prince was wrong. He shouldn't have killed your son." "How can I trust you?" "Fly into the cage and I assure you of your safety." Trusting the king, the parrot flew into the cage. The king grabbed the parrot and angrily said, "We are friends, but you shouldn't have blinded my son. You will be punished." Moral: even with friends, don't believe everything they say easily. Sometimes friends can be the most dangerous enemies. 77. The Terrifying Power of Gold. A monk, terrified and frantic, ran out of a deep forest and stumbled upon two close friends taking a walk at the edge of the woods. They asked him, "Why are you in such a hurry and so scared?" The monk replied, "It's horrifying. I found a pile of gold in the forest." Hearing this, his friends quickly said, "You're being silly. Finding gold is a good thing. Why would you say it's horrifying?" So they asked the monk, "Where did you find it? Please tell us the location." The monk, still panicked, answered, "It's a truly terrifying thing. Aren't you afraid? It can devour people." The friends didn't believe him and urged the monk to tell them where the gold was. The monk said, "It's under the tree at the west corner of the forest." The friends rushed there and indeed found a pile of gold. One of them said to the other, "That monk is a fool. Everyone wants gold, yet he thinks it's something that eats people." The other nodded in agreement. They then planned how to take the gold home. One suggested, "It's not safe to carry the gold during the day. Let's wait until night. I'll stay here to guard it. You go get some food, and we'll rest here. When it gets dark, we'll take the gold." The one who went to get food thought, "If all this gold were mine, that would be great. When he returns, I'll kill him with a wooden stick, and all the gold will be mine alone." Meanwhile, the one guarding the gold thought, "I'll eat well at home first, then poison his food. Once he's dead, the gold will be all mine." Eventually, when the food fetcher returned to the forest, the other attacked him from behind with a stick, fatally injuring him, and said, "Sorry, my dear friend, the gold made me do it." He then ate the food his friend brought, taking big bites. Soon after, he felt a terrible pain in his stomach and realized he had been poisoned. Before dying, he thought, "The monk was right all along." Moral of the story: this story resonates with the old saying, "Humans die for money, birds die for food." Greed is what leads to all disasters. Desire turns even the closest friends into enemies. If you cannot overcome desire, your life will be full of troubles. Human greed knows no bounds and will never be satisfied. This is the greatest sorrow of mankind. 78. To remember me. The day will come when I am lying on a white bedspread, neatly tucked into the corners of a mattress in a hospital full of people fighting between life and death. Eventually, the doctor will declare that my brain has stopped working and that my life has effectively ended. When that happens, please don't try to use machines to keep me alive artificially. And don't call this the bed where I died. Call it the bed of life, and take my body to help others live fuller lives. Give my eyes to a man who has never seen sunlight, a child's face, or love in a woman's eyes. Give my heart to someone who suffers daily with a diseased heart. Give my blood to a young man pulled from a wrecked car so he can live to see his grandchildren play. Replace a dialysis patient's kidneys with mine. Take my bones, muscles, and nerves to help a disabled child walk. Study every part of my brain. Take my cells if needed and grow them so one day a mute boy can cheer at a game and a deaf girl can hear rain on the window. Whatever is left, cremate it and scatter the ashes to help trees grow and bloom. If you need to bury something, let it be my faults, weaknesses, and all my prejudices against others. Give my sins to the devil and my soul to God. And if you want to remember me, do so with a kind gesture or word to someone in need. If you do all I wish for, I will live forever.
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.